appears ordinary till you see the core side of it.
And what you're looking for is a story behind the news.
We bring it to you from Lagos, the commercial capital of Nigeria.
Giving you all sides and political stories round the clock.
Every detail from the start line to the final whistle.
CoreTV News, expanding your view.
Hello, good evening. Thank you for joining us on CoreTV Primetime News. I am Frank Omalape. Our top stories tonight. President-elect Muhammadu Buhari backs the federal government's efforts to protect Nigerians in South Africa following continued xenophobic attacks in the country. Also in this program, some political parties in Rivers, Edo and Bayelsa state boycotts rescheduled stage of assembly polls. Enugu state shuts border with Ondo state over mysterious Edo death. Outside Nigeria, Australia leads for its Islamic State-inspired plot at the World War I centenary event. Thank you for joining us tonight. Nigeria's President-elect Muhammadu Buhari says he is in full support of steps taken so far by the Nigerian government to protect the country's citizens from the wave of xenophobic attacks in South Africa. Buhari will make this statement released in Abuja. Says that the missions in Pretoria have taken the right step by advising the Nigerian community in South Africa to close their shops, stay home and keep out of trouble while ensuring that they obey the laws of their host country. Making allusion to efforts made by the South African government to curb the situation, he advised Nigerians in South Africa to, in the meantime, abide by the words of caution extended them by their government representative from Pretoria. Buhari also commended the Nigerian government for its decision to monitor the situation in South Africa and evacuate its citizens at any sign of escalation. According to Buhari, and I quote, "I am happy to see what the Nigerian government is very well aware of its responsibility to its citizens in South Africa." But he expressed sadness at the unfolding events in South Africa, recalling the friendly relations between Nigeria and South Africa since the end of apartheid. And now the People's Democratic Party has described as provocative and completely unacceptable the xenophobic attack on Nigerians and other foreign nationals in South Africa. PDP National Publicity Secretary Olesame Tui, in a statement issued in Abuja, says the attacks were outrightly barbaric, primitive and cannot be justified under any guise whatsoever. Metu went on to say it was unfortunate and disheartening that South Africans by this attitude have shown that they are not appreciative of the roles played by Nigeria and other African countries in liberating their nation from the clutches of the obnoxious apartheid system. He said while the PDP was aware that the unfortunate incident was a fallout of incendiary utterances by certain leaders in South Africa, he called on the ruling African National Congress and South African government to take urgent practical steps to stem the tide and guarantee the safety of lives and property of Nigerians and other nationals targeted by the xenophobes. The Nigerian Union in South Africa said he has concluded arrangement to resettle 50 Nigerians affected by the ongoing xenophobic attacks. The president of the union, Ikechukwu Anien, disclosed in an interview with the news agency of Nigeria via phone. Anien says about 300 Nigerians were displaced at JP's town close to Johannesburg. He also revealed that the unit has presented relief materials To those affected by the attacks, they are in touch with various branches of the union and the provisions on their safety and security. According to Anyin, Nigerian shops and businesses in Durban and Johannesburg have been looted and some burnt. He says 2 shops belonging to Nigerians in Durban were looted and the lost goods worth over 400,000 rands. Anyin reiterated the union's call to the federal government to put more pressure on the South African government to halt the attacks. And now, following the mysterious death in a community in the neighboring Ondo State, Ogun State Commissioner for Health, Olaokun Soyinka, has assured residents that there is no cause for alarm in the state. He says the state had put on the alert the state disease surveillance and emergency response teams. Soyinka further explained that the residents of the state living in border areas with Ondo State had been advised against traveling to affected places. He says the 2 teams had maintained close contact with the Ondo State authorities. No fewer than 17 people had reportedly died during the week as a result of a mysterious disease which broke out at Ode-Irele in Ondo State. The symptoms of the deadly disease are said to be sudden outset of blood or lost visions, headache, loss of consciousness followed by death, all within 24 hours. It was reported that blood tests were being carried out on collected samples of the victim to ascertain if the death had been caused by the ingested poisons or other infections agents. Soyinka said the disease surveillance teams put together by the state governor, Senator Bikunle Amosu, during the Ebola outbreak had been put on full alert. Meanwhile, a high chief of Ode-Irele Ondo State, Moses Enimadi, says the recent death of 20 youth in the town was caused by sacrilege done to Moluku, god of the land, rather than any disease. Addressing journalists, Enimadi, the next in command to the town's monarch, Oba Cornelius Olanrewaju Lebi, debunked reports that the deaths were caused by a strange disease or the dreaded Ebola virus. Instead, he says some stubborn youth broke into the inner room of Moluku's shrine on April 15. He says Moluku is a deity of the land. Only the chief priest and high chief Boguro are qualified to enter the shrine. Youth entered the shrine and made away with the traditional items in a bid to acquire extraordinary powers and engage in money ritual. They were not qualified to enter the room. They had to face death penalty. According to him, he says he could not remember the last time Moluku or any other god had to strike like this in the area. Enimadi says unless the gods are appeased, the gods, many will still die and will be buried according to tradition. Their causes belong to the gods and will be exhumed, buried by the families, according to him. Moving away from there now, the All Progressive Congress in Rivers State has boycotted the House of Assembly elections or rerun elections in 4 local government areas. Candidates who contested the April 11, 2015 House of Assembly election on the platform of the APC say they are not interested in the rescheduled poll. The Independent National Electoral Commission has rescheduled election in 6 constituencies of 4 local government areas where elections were adjourned inconclusive. Leader of the State House of Assembly, Chidi Lloyd, had told journalists in Port Harcourt that the boycott was in line with a court injunction at the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt, restraining INEC from conducting the election.
We hereby renew our call to the chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission to suspend the proposed elections at their court proceedings pending in the Federal High Court, Port Harcourt, seeking to stop the elections. We believe that INEC, having been served the court processes on the 16th of April 2015, wants to ridicule the court and bring the court to contempt by going ahead, should they go ahead to conduct elections when such has been challenged in court. There are no national and international observers available to monitor the elections to ensure that they are credible, free, and fair, as they have withdrawn from their roles and left the state in the wake of horrible violence, bestiality, and disgraceful electoral malpractice recorded on the 28th of March and 11th of April 2015 respectively. To worsen this situation, there has been no official communication by INEC to us and our party the All Progressive Congress, about the so-called elections due to be supervised by Mrs. Gisela Khan, whose handling of the recent elections have been most disgraceful and controversial. We firmly believe that exposing our good people of Rivers State to further violence in the name of fresh elections is not in the interest of the electorate. We are ready to serve.
And now the rescheduled Orionwa constituency 2 election conducted in Edo State was boycotted by the People's Democratic Party as the All Progressive Congress had a field day. The PDP ruled out the exercise over alleged compromise by the Edo State Resident Electoral Commissioner Mike Igini. The election was conducted in 12 units in 4 wards of the constituency amid high security. These APC party agents, however, commended the smooth process while observing the absence of the PDP regents.
The aggregation committee started 8:02 in the morning. At about 1 this afternoon, we stopped. So we're about to start voting. The exercise is going on smoothly, no problem, no fighting. All the parties that are here, APC, there are some one PDP member that is here. You know, so we are all doing it smoothly. At the end of the day, we'll know who will win.
I vote here. This is my community. So the voting, as you can see, is going on peacefully. Everything is in order, well arranged. You don't see any person, any divisions among us. All parties are here completed. So after the accreditation now, the voting properly want to take place. The PDP asked their agents and voters to withdraw. They withdraw out of this election. So since they withdraw, the other parties can continue with their vote. That's why we are here. It was supposed to be 2, which is the PDP. So since they asked them to go out of the field, they went out. So the only the government.
And our Ward 5, Unit 14, Ward 9, Unit 6, 7 and 8 recorded poor turnout, but the case was different in Ward 10, Unit 3A and 3B. Ogun State People's Democratic Party says it is heading for the election tribunals to challenge the victory of the ruling All Progressive Congress in the governorship and House of Assembly elections in the state. The party chairman in Ogun State, Adebayo Dayo, insists its PDP governorship candidate, Boyiga Isiaka, won in the governorship election, alleging that the APC rigged the poll by manipulating the scores at the collation centers. In response to the APC, it has debunked the allegations through the Director General, Senator Ibikunle Amosu campaign organization, Bode Mustafa, who described the allegation of rigging against the APC as unfounded. Mustafa insists the PDP's governorship candidate, who had declared himself winner before the election was concluded, should be questioned. In his response, the Ogun State Resident Electoral Commissioner Timothy Bitoye claims Isiaka's allegations were untrue. You're still watching in CoreTV Primetime News. After the break, the Senior Special Assistant to the President on Public Affairs, Donyo Kupi, alleges Chibok abduction was carried out to discredit President Jonathan's administration. We'll bring you more details after this time out. Stay with us.
Any tribe that rules has solid rules.
Rule number 1, friends stay close. Friends in the tribe, stay closer. Feel me?
Rule number 2, in the tribe, you always know what's up with Facebook, WhatsApp, BB, and Twitter. Guess what? It's free.
Rule number 3, there are no rules with SMS. It's endless. Yes, boss.
Rule number 4, enjoy very long conversations with that special someone.
Enjoy endless connections to your friends with free calls, free WhatsApp, Twitter, Facebook, and BBM. You also enjoy up to 200% bonus on your recharges to call all networks. Migrate now by dialing *312# and start a live endless connection.
Airtel, the smartphone network.
You're still watching CoreTV Primetime News live from our Lagos studios. If you just join us, here a quick reminder of our top stories. President-elect Muhammadu Buhari backs the federal government's efforts to protect Nigerians in South Africa following continued xenophobic attacks in the country. And some political parties in Rivers State, Edo, and Bayelsa boycott rescheduled State of Assembly polls. Ogun State shuts border with Ondo State over mysterious death. All our major stories can be found on our social media platforms like our Facebook page. It's facebook.com/CoreTV News. You can also follow at CoreTV News. And for live streaming, log on to youtube.com/CoreTV, leave a space, then news. And now the special senior assistant to the President and Public Affairs, Doni Okunkwe, says one of the reasons more than 200 Chibok girls were kidnapped in Chibok, Borno State last year was to present the administration of President Goodluck Jonathan as incompetent. In a message posted on his personal Facebook and Twitter timelines, Okunkwe also alleged that the Bring Back Girls group was formed in order to sustain and internationalize the agenda of incompetence against the outgoing administration. Okunkwe also claims that one of the reasons President Jonathan lost the election was a national and international conspiracy predicated on this carefully choreographed and assiduously sustained perception. He, however, called on well-meaning men and women of good conscience to dialogue with the incoming administration on what best next approach to employ to find and rescue the Chibok girls. The Chibok girls were abducted on April 14, 2014, and the failure of the federal government to rescue them has been one of the talking points of the Jonathan administration. It is over a year since Boko Haram group abducted about 276 schoolgirls in their dormitories while preparing for the senior school certificate examination in Chibok Town, Borno State. In this special report, our correspondent Patience Ajiboye takes a look at the abduction and its effects a young year later.
Chibok, a predominantly Christian town located south of Borno State, with a population of 66,105 as the 2006 census came to limelight on April 14, 2014, following the abduction of 276 female students between ages 16 and 18 from Government Girls Secondary School, Chibok, by the Boko Haram terror group. The sect, which is fanatically opposed to Western education, claiming it is against Islamic teaching, gave religious reasons for the abduction of the schoolgirls, whom they insist should be housewives and homemakers. The Nigerian military, in reaction to the kidnap, issued a statement saying 100 out of 129 kidnapped girls had been freed, a statement which was immediately retracted when parents debunked the claim, insisting that 234 girls were still missing. Amnesty International, however, believes that the abduction could have been averted if the Nigerian military had been proactive, having received its reports 4 hours before the kidnap but failed to mobilize reinforcement. The Nigerian military, however, did not debunk the allegations. While all this went on, it was not until May 4th that Nigeria President Goodluck Jonathan for the first time spoke publicly on the Chibok girls' abduction, saying government was doing all to find the missing girls. On the 5th of May, Boko Haram leader Abubakar Shekau released a video claiming responsibility for the abduction. It says girls their age had no business being in school, as they have been suitable for marriage since age 9. On the 9th of May 2014, former Boko Haram negotiator Shehu Sani stated that the sect wants a swap of the girls for their jailed members. Governor Kashim Shettima of Borno State on the following day said he had sighted abducted girls and debunked claims that they had been taken to Chad and Cameroon. Again, Boko Haram released a video on the 12th of May showing about 130 kidnapped girls, each clad in hijab. He also demanded a swap.
Bring back our girls. Oh, bring back our army. Bring back our army. Jonathan! Girl, Christian, bring back our army.
President Goodluck Jonathan had, however, consulted with some foreign ministers and had reached a no-deal with terrorists consensus. On the 26th of May, Chief of Defense Staff Alex Bade gave Nigerians some hope when he said the girls had been located, although he ruled out forceful rescue. The rest, as they say, is history. On the 26th of June, it was alleged that a certain Levick public relations firm in Washington, D.C. had been awarded a contract worth $1.2 million by Nigeria's federal government to do a narrative surrounding the kidnap. Again, on October 12, it was reported that 4 of the kidnapped girls escaped and made a freedom walk for 3 days to Nigeria. The girls say they were held in a camp in Cameroon and raped every day. Protests have been held in many states across Nigeria and in major western states of Los Angeles and London. The Bring Back Our Girl hashtag also trended globally on Twitter. It started on May 1st and by 11th already attracted 2.3 million tweets. There have also been prayers and rallies, one of such led by former Education Minister Obi Ezenkwesili of the Bring Back Our Girls group. Alas, it is April 14 again. Senior school certificate examination is once again ongoing and Chibok has still not had the girls back. Although, this time, they are no more just Chibok girls, they are now the world's. Patience Ajiboye, CoreTV News, Lagos.
1 year after, indeed, moving away from there now, with the approach of the incoming administration, civil society groups and well-meaning Nigerians have called on the newly elected politicians to live up to their campaign promises and serve the electorates that have voted them into power. A university don and coordinator of Muslim Media Watch Group of Nigeria, Abdullah Ibrahim, has cautioned the newly elected legislators in Kwara State to discharge their duties appropriately. He made this call in an inclusive interview with CoreTV News. Our correspondent Rashid has details. With the new democratic administration about to kick off, Nigerians look forward to fulfillment of promises made by politicians who courted the electorates for months ahead the 2015 general elections. Hence the call by political stakeholders, civil society groups and the academia wants the elected political officials to keep their promises made to Nigerians as they come into office. A university don, Ibrahim Abdullahi, has cautioned newly elected houses of assembly members across the country to drop personal interests and make the laws, which is the primary objective of being elected as legislators. As intermediaries between the government and the people, he asked the lawmakers to make laws that will favor the masses and not their personal, political or financial interests.
When issue arises, they should ensure that the people of the constituents are taken along so that they take their mandate before they speak in the legislature. They should cooperate with the state government to achieve its program. However, they should stand firm as representative of the people to ensure that people are well taken care of. So when budgets are presented into the state legislature, members of the House of Assembly should ensure that whatever is presented, if it's for the welfare of the people, it is approved.
Ibrahim also encouraged the opposition to make constructive criticism with appropriate evidence to make the government to do the right thing at the right time.
The opposition is to see where the government is performing well and commend them, where they are not doing well to criticize them objectively. There is still opposition. If the opposing political parties that are not in power, if they do well, it will make the government that has been chosen to perform very, very well. Not until when you get to the government or when you are inside government before you do your duty to the people. By you criticizing government objectively on the areas in which they are lacking, people will commend the opponents for that. And I believe those who are in power to be able to see it, that these people actually love this state. They love our people, and that's why they are criticizing us on the areas of that demands improvement.
With these calls for a people-centered governance, Nigerians look forward to the promises of the incoming administration to deliver. And our reactions are trailing the withdrawal of the transformer gifted to residents of Sabo community in Ibadan by the PDP governorship candidate Teslim Folare 24 hours after the day of election. The act is, however, faced with allegations and counter-allegations as to what led to the incident. Our correspondent Omotalo has details.
The controversial transformer episode in Sabo community has not stopped generating reactions from residents who frowned at the act of uninstalling something that was already given out to the community. Residents blamed the candidate for political recklessness and selfishness, describing him as an untruthful and power-hungry candidate. But Teslim Folarin, who reacted to the allegation on social media, says he never gave any instruction to retrieve the transformer he gave to the community, even though he was poorly voted for in the vicinity. More so, a stalwart from Folarin's party in the community, Mukhtar Abdul Inka, says the act was carried out by one of the closest aide of the candidates within the community and was not sure if Folarin was informed before the act took place.
His members that took the transformer, you should blame them, his members, because there is winner, there is loser. If he exercises a patient one day, if God said that he will become a governor in this Oyo state, he will become. Because there is no permanent enemy in politics, no permanent prince. And again, there is no opportunity without opposition.
According to the community leader, the retrieval of the transformer made a lot of youth angry that even after an hour when instructions came for the transformer to be reinstalled, it was a joint agreement from members of the community to reject it.
The transformer does not belong to me. It does not belong to the Hausa community only. It does not belong to Yoruba or any ethnic group. It belongs solely to God Almighty, because we started it at the Sabo Central Mosque, not for the Hausa community. So the transformer meant that it wanted to serve God Almighty, not me, not any of my aide. So it was donated to God and it was taken away from God.
Meanwhile, the incumbent governor who won the governorship election in the state, on hearing the incident, donated 2 new transformers that are bigger than the one earlier donated. Omotayo Alo, CoreTV News, Ibadan.
Well, has the dust of 2015 elections settled? Perhaps it has. However, some essential service providers were in the thick of it, as were the politicians. Our correspondent Oluwaseyi Adegeke spoke with some of the people who brought it all home to you and brought back this report.
Nigeria's electoral law permits only essential service providers free movement during elections. Media practitioners are on the list, and that's just the beginning. The experiences on the field are different strokes for different folks. Before, during, and after voting, the journalist's work at this period is a 24-hour schedule.
I've been covering election since 2008 in Lagos State. I covered 2011 general elections. In Lagos State, you move around. What you just observe is security operatives, the military on the road. Nothing of such at the polling units, but you see them on the major highways to maintain security. But in Rivers State, it was taken further. You could see machine guns. It was like a war in Rivers State.
The schedule of the reporter is irrespective of the media format, be it print or electronic, radio or television.
I was in Lagos, and I think coverage in Lagos was largely peaceful. Though during the second batch of the election, the governorship and state assembly parts, the turnout was very low. Turnout was low, but it's largely peaceful.
Services provided by the media are for the public. But is the public satisfied?
Well, the media tried their best, but one thing about me is I still like to advise the media, especially the print media, when they bring stories that contradict themselves. Now, when you open a newspaper, you see another story. You open another newspaper, you see another story. The media are fantastic, but the print media need to improve on their own print.
The media, yeah, they reported well. I so much welcome them.
I'm sure of the presidential owners in the report of that one was clear and okay, free and clear election. But for the state election, I'm not too sure of that, because I wasn't opportune to watch it very well. But for the presidential owners in that Jega, in fact, the man is very much competent. It's okay.
As all essential service providers, journalists run an irregular, unpredictable schedule, all for national development. After all, Information is power. Oluwaseyi Adegoke, CoreTV News, Lagos.
Electricity workers in Kaduna State are bracing for an indefinite strike from Thursday, April 23. This is when the 2-week ultimatum set by the North Chapter of the National Union of Electricity Employees expires. Officials of the Kaduna Electricity Company are, however, taking steps to prevent the workers from plunging the state into total darkness. Our correspondent Amina Nebi has more in this report presented from our studios. Well, we apologize we can't bring you that report now. We'll bring you that report in our subsequent bulletin. You're still watching CoreTV Primetime News. We take another break now. We'll be back with business, sport, and other stories outside Nigeria. Stay with us.
From time immemorial, women have birthed life, shaped character, and by extension, influenced the society. Moremi of Ife, Emoten of Benin, Queen Aminat of Zaria, all women of influence and power.
Whether it's before election, after election.
How ironical. Women being so powerful, yet have few grounds in decision making.
They see you as a wife, and I see you as a wife to a man.
We are talking women in politics.
A woman will be bold enough to stand up and say, I want to become president of Nigeria.
Only on CoreTV News.
Glad to have you back now. In business, Tinkan Island generated 61.6 billion naira revenue in the first quarter of 2015. Chris Osuko, the public relations officer of the command, said in Lagos. Osuko says the amount was higher compared to 59.8 billion naira recorded in the corresponding period of 2014. According to the PRO of the command, the new automotive policy has an adversely effect on the volume of vehicles imported, but did not affect revenue collection. The revenues generated by the command in the first quarter were from import duty, excise duty, fees, common external tariffs, 5% value-added tax, 7% levy National Automotive Council, among others. And the Nigerian authorities have put the country's power generation at 5,000 megawatts. The Power Minister, Chinedu Neighbor, will disclose these. Explains that the Jonathan administration will have done better if not for vandals who have been breaking gas pipelines. He spoke shortly after a closed-door meeting with the board of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company in Abuja. Our correspondent, Payo Samia, has more.
This is the last meeting of the board of the Niger Delta Power Holding Company before the outgoing administration bows out of office. The board is chaired by the Vice President, Namadi Sambo, and has a membership that includes the governors of Benue and Gombe State. Speaking shortly after a closed-door meeting, Governor Gabriel Suswan says the board will not be able to complete some of the projects it has started. He attributed this to the time left for the Jonathan administration to hand over to the incoming government.
The board resolved to commission some of the numerous projects that under the NIPP program. Those projects are to be commissioned in the subsequent weeks. The MD of Niger Delta will mention the projects that were to commission that are numerous. He will mention that. The board also noted that given the time constraint, the said transaction, especially of the of the generation plant, some will not necessarily be completed. The MD of Niger Delta Power Holding Company will also touch on some of these transactions that this board, because of the time, will not be able to complete them.
Minister of Power, for his part, painted a picture of performance, but insisted that the non-availability of power is largely due to the handiwork of saboteurs. He was emphatic in describing gas pipeline vandalism in some parts of the country as a major challenge.
The problem today is still vandalism. Whether it is the eastern or western axis, we keep suffering vandalism. And it happened almost predictably every 2 weeks. Once they hit the western axis, Escravos-Lagos pipeline, the only reason they hit it is apparently for sabotage, because you can't collect the gas, you can't sell the gas, you can't store the gas. Only gas flows through these pipelines. So anybody who is doing that is only trying to sabotage the effort of the government and to make sure that Nigerians are kept in darkness.
The minister expressed concerns over the cost of fixing one vandalized gas pipeline and noted that if the money is channeled to boosting power supply, Nigerians would have been enjoying 24-hour power supply.
We are on a constant maintenance exercise, constant repair exercise, to the point that after the February-March vandalism, 4 vandalism, heavy, massive ones between these 2 months took place, we had to really test the reliability of the entire system to be sure that it was still strong enough technically to handle gas flow. And it costs the gas company, transport company, a minimum of 120 million naira every month.
Members of the board are, however, convinced that they have created a template for the incoming administration to work on.
New things keep coming that requires attention, and so I don't believe that they will just come and revoke this project simply because they were given by the previous administration. They will look at it and then take informed decisions. So I don't think the fact that most of these people have not completed the transaction is not so much of fear that the incoming administration will revoke it. But it is just that there are issues, as been mentioned here, issues of gas. There are also some minor legal issues that need to be settled, and a lot of money is involved, if we must also note that.
For now, the board is promising to ensure that gas is supplied to power plants across the country before the end of the tenure of the Jonathan administration. Pius Samuel, CoreTV News, Abuja.
Nigeria's oil prices rose more than 3% on Friday. According to OPEC's monthly oil market report, Nigeria's production output for January to March 2015 averaged 1.96 million barrels per day, 1.896 and 1.86 million barrels per day, respectively. Nigeria's production output for March 2015 dropped by 38,600 barrel per day from 1.9 million barrel per day in February to 1.86 million barrel per day. Meanwhile, crude oil earnings by Nigeria and her joint venture partner dropped by 39.23% to $7.50 billion in the first quarter of 2015 from a fourth quarter 2014 earnings of $12.49 billion. Oil revenues account for 70% of Nigeria's federal budget and up to 95% of export earnings. Brent crude oil prices went up early to repair the losses above $64. Brent crude has rallied 16% in April, supported by Yemen and the prospect that lower prices are starting to curb the U.S. shale gas. At 15, Brent crude for June was up 25 cents at $64.23 a barrel. It hit a 2015 high of $64.9. On Thursday, U.S. crude oil for May was down by 9 cents at $56.62 a barrel. While Yemen is not a major oil producer, the conflict raises concern about risks to supply from major exporters in the region, such as neighbor Saudi Arabia. Oil prices have almost halved since June 2014 on ample supplies. The Organization of the Petroleum Exporting Countries says in its monthly report that its March production jumped 810,000 barrels per day to 30.79 million barrels per day, led by Saudi Arabia. And in sports now, Super Falcons striker Perpetual Nkocha has urged her teammates to be very competitive, thereby making selection of players difficult for the coaches. Nkocha gave this charge when she joined her teammates in camp on Friday and also took part in Friday evening. The 4-time African woman footballer said she is happy about the AAG ticket and urged Nigerians to continue to support Super Falcons in their bid to qualify for the Olympics and doing very well at the forthcoming World Cup in Canada. The Secretariat of the Nigeria Nationwide League has opted for an abridged 2014-2015 season. This is to ensure that it meets the August deadline of concluding league matches before the grand finale of the Federation Cup slated for the same month. This was made known by the Executive Secretary of the Nationwide League. He said reason for this is due to the recent general elections, as the NOAD couldn't start the league as scheduled because of the shifting of the polls. Ogunowo, however, assured every stakeholder in the league that the 2014-2015 season will be much better packaged. Informed #1 world Novak Djokovic overcame a battling Rafael Nadal to set up a meeting with Thomas Berdych in the final of the Monte Carlo Open. Djokovic, bidding to win a third Masters title in a row, lost the first two games of the match but fought back to triumph 6-3, 6-3 on the clay. It was the 43rd meeting between the pair, with Nadal, who has slipped to world number 5, 23-20 ahead. Djokovic, 27, has lost only 2 matches this year. With Prince Albert of Monaco in the crowd, Nadal and Djokovic put on a high-class semi-final. And outside Algeria now, police in Australia says they have foiled an Islamic State inspired plot to carry out an attack at a World War I centenary event. Police arrested 5 teenage suspects charging 18-year-olds, one of them with conspiring to commit a terrorist act. The men were planning to target police at an Anzac memorial event in the Melbourne next week. About 200 police officers took part in the counter-terrorism operation in the city earlier on Saturday. Acting Deputy Police Commissioner Neil Gurkhan told journalists that the evidence suggested the suspect had been influenced by the Islamic State. One of the men, Sefdet Bezin, appeared briefly in Melbourne Magistrate Court on Saturday. Police say a second man held on terrorism-related offences is also likely to be charged. A third man, also 18, was arrested on weapons charges, and 2 other teenagers, aged 18 and 19, were in custody and assisting with inquiries. Well, it does it on Core TV Primetime News tonight. Just before we go, a recap of our major headlines. We told you that President-elect Muhammadu Buhari backs the federal government's efforts to protect Nigerians in South Africa following continued xenophobic attacks in the country. We also brought to you that some political parties in Rivers, Edo, and Bayelsa boycott rescheduled stage of assembly polls. And finally tonight, Ogun State shuts border with Ondo State over mysterious intermittent death. Well, it does it tonight. Many thanks for watching. On behalf of the entire news crew, I am Frank Omalape. Do have a wonderful day.